Hello there. I am Miss Julian T. Parungao, your subject teacher in Oral Communication in Context, under Quarter 1, Module 1, with the topic of functions, nature, and process of communication. Are you ready and excited to listen? If your answer is yes, so fasten your seatbelt and let us now start our new topic. Our discussion for today is all about the functions, nature, and process of communication. After going through this module, you are expected to, number 1, explain the nature and process of communication. Number 2, understand the relationship of the functions of communication to everyday life. And number 3, illustrate the process of communication. Let's now proceed to the nature of communication. Communication is a two-way process of connecting to both living and non-living things. It is also a means of sharing and exchanging messages, information, ideas, and feelings for mutual understanding. We also have the two types of communication, which is the verbal and non-verbal. Communication connects people and the world they live in. It is through communication that people are able to express their thoughts and ideas or to convey information and messages through word of mouth, gestures and signals, signs, and others. So, to further define communication using the two key terms as stated above, which is message and understand. So under this, for number 1, communication is a message understood. So the message is sent, but the receiver does not understand it. Then number 2, communication is social interaction through messages. Without interactions, a society cannot survive. So that's why communication is very essential in our daily living. We discuss problems and arrive at solutions because of communication. We exchange ideas and interact with others. We transact and then we negotiate. In doing all this, we use communication. So, let's imagine a situation where we are not able to speak and interact with others. Or think of a family living in the same house without speaking to each other or relating any form of message to one another. So I think it will seem boring. Another is, without communication, all forms of human relationship will vanish and die. So communication is therefore crucial in building and maintaining relationships. So what else? We also have here the process of communication. So there are also times that we fail to communicate effectively, which results to misunderstanding or miscommunication. Why do you think this thing happens? What are the ways to avoid them? So we are sometimes misunderstood due to the level of speech we use during conversation, by the volume of our voice or the rate of our speech when we talk with our friends or acquaintances. Sometimes we are misunderstood due to the nonverbal actions that we project or incorporate in our speech during face-to-face communication. Also, when we send text or chat messages, we are misinterpreted because those messages are often brief and devoid of emotions. Okay, so here's a picture that shows the process of communication. So we have here the encoding, stimulus, sending channel, the barrier also, which is the noise, then encoding, understanding. So it is a cycle. So better communication is important. Having a clear and detailed information. And then next, as seen in the illustration, communication begins when the speaker or source of communication responds to a stimulus and decides to encode or transmit it in the form of a message or a code through a particular channel or means of communication. The receiver decodes or interprets the message sent and responds accordingly based on his interpretation of the message. This response comes in the form of a feedback sent to the original source of communication or the sender. So as the communication transaction continues, the sender and receiver may exchange roles until understanding is achieved. Barriers to communication sometimes block the transmission of the message, thereby creating misunderstanding. That's why sometimes if the barriers is present in the said communication or conversation, so a misunderstanding might happen. And then through this process, we are able to understand that communication is systematic. In the advent of technology, the exchange of information and messages in society has advanced and has been a subject of many studies. So as the communication transaction continues, the sender and receiver may exchange roles until understanding is achieved. Barriers to communication sometimes block the transmission of the message, thereby creating misunderstanding. So now let's proceed to the functions of communications. So here are some of the functions. The first is to inform, to clarify, to buy, to teach, to accept, to criticize, to inspire, to question, to understand, to learn, to affirm, to deny, to counsel, to express, to confirm, to persuade, to clarify, to conceal, to sell, to promote, to advise, to reveal, and to motivate. So those were the functions. But actually, there were so many functions of communications. And it depends on how we use it. So we realize that communication serves many purposes, whether we are at home, in school, at work, or at play, we engage in communication. Okay, so I am hoping that you learned a lot in my presentation today. That's all. Thank you for your listening. Goodbye.